We often hear that faith is this purely private, emotional thing, something totally separate from logic and reason. But what if there's actually a rational case to be made? Well, our source material for today dives right into that. Arguments for Christian belief that are aimed not just at the heart, but at the mind too. And that right there is such a powerful idea. It's not saying that faith is some kind of dry academic exercise, not at all. Instead, it argues that the incredible story at its core should be defended with reason. The source makes a great point. If someone has an intellectual roadblock to belief, you don't just ignore it. You start right there with the argument. And that really gets to the heart of the problem, doesn't it? In a culture that often puts a huge premium on skepticism, on what feels good right now, how do you even begin to make a case for something as big as faith? This is the core question that our source material really sets out to tackle. Okay, so the first part of the case begins not with ancient books, but with the universe itself. It's all about looking for what the source calls pointers to a designer. The big idea here is that you don't have to start with some massive leap of faith. The claim is that the cosmos itself provides evidence that points toward an intelligent origin, and that this evidence is so substantial that, as the source puts it, it leaves us without excuse. So, one of the biggest pointers they talk about is this idea of the fine-tuning of the universe. Basically, it's the observation that these fundamental forces, like gravity and the properties of atoms, seem to be calibrated with just unbelievable precision. I mean, if they were off by just a tiny, tiny fraction, life as we know it just couldn't exist, period. And if you want to get a handle on just how insane those odds are, just look at this number from Oxford physicist Roger Penrose. That's a 1 followed by so many zeros that, as the source notes, you couldn't even write them all down if you put a 0 on every single particle in the known universe. That's the kind of mind-boggling precision we're talking about here. And hey, this isn't just coming from theologians. This quote is from Arno Penzias, a Nobel Prize-winning physicist. It just goes to show how the raw data from cosmology has led some scientists to conclude that, yeah, the universe really does look like it has a plan. So how in the world do you explain this incredible fine-tuning? Well, the source material kind of boils it down to two main options. Either our universe is the product of an intelligent designer, or it's just one of a nearly infinite number of parallel universes, and we just happened to win the cosmic lottery. It's a choice, as the text frames it, between blind chance that requires multitudes of universes, or design that requires only one. But look, making a positive case is only half the story. Because as soon as you start talking about a cosmic designer, you run straight into the toughest counter-argument there is, one that's rooted not in physics but in our own human experience. The source also dives into the toughest objections, starting with the hardest question of all. This is it, the problem of evil and suffering. It's an ancient question, and for a lot of people, it's a huge barrier, both intellectually and, let's be honest, emotionally. How can a good God and a world so full of pain exist at the same time? And the source material, it really doesn't pull any punches on this. It uses this absolutely harrowing passage to show you just how sharp the teeth of this problem are. This isn't some abstract puzzle. It's about real, gut-wrenching pain. So the response they offer has a few layers to it. First, the argument is that for evil to even be a meaningful concept, there has to be an original good that it's twisting or deviating from. Second, there's the idea of redemption, that suffering doesn't have to be the final word, that it can be transformed. And third, it asserts that God isn't some distant observer, but is actually present with us in our suffering. To make that first point a little clearer, the source tells this story about a puppy that chews up a one-of-a-kind, priceless necklace. The puppy hasn't done anything evil, right? Because it has no idea what that necklace's value or purpose is. The tragedy is only real for the owner, who understands what's been lost, what's been violated. The argument is that evil works the same way. It's a violation of a good that was already there. All right, so the second major objection is the charge of irrationality. Here, the source quotes the famous atheist Richard Dawkins, who pretty much frames faith as a kind of non-thinking, a belief that you hold not just without any evidence, but actively against the evidence. Now, the counter-argument here is fascinating. The suggestion is this. Since you can't absolutely prove that God doesn't exist, and a lot of atheist philosophers will concede that point, then atheism itself requires a certain amount of belief. If neither position can be 100% proven, then they're both operating in a way as belief systems.
So the question shifts from what can you prove to which belief system makes more sense of the world we actually live in.
And all of this kind of builds up to the final really big idea. It moves beyond just individual arguments and counterarguments to something much bigger, the whole concept of a worldview. And this is where you start to see what all these arguments are really for. They're not meant to be weapons you use to win a fight. Instead, they're presented as tools to help clear away some of the obstacles, to pave the way for an invitation to simply see things in a new way.
So the whole approach is framed as an invitation. Don't just stand on the outside and criticize it. Step inside for a minute. Try on the worldview like it's a new pair of glasses, and then ask a really simple question. Does this perspective make sense of the world I see around me? Does it explain our deep desire for justice, our longing for meaning, our experience of beauty, our capacity for love?
And this quote from C.S. Lewis just nails this idea perfectly. Faith isn't just one more thing you're supposed to look at. It's presented at the light that lets you look at everything else and see it all more clearly. It's the lens that might just bring the whole picture into focus.
So, at the end of the day, that's the question the source material leaves us with. It moves beyond this demand for absolute mathematical proof and instead asks something different. Does this faith offer a more compelling, a more coherent, a more livable story? Is it a lens that best makes sense of the beautiful, broken, complicated world we all experience? And that, I think, is a question worth considering.